I'm switching to the Pro Dye for a lot of these kind of projects. I still have to tan coat these. I was a little disappointed when I saw, and it really takes dye really uneven. But most of the time with this leather, I've been using it as a liner for when I make Western holsters and stuff. I like to put a liner in them, and it helps really stiffen it up. Quick draw holsters and that kind of thing, or holsters that you want to be able to quick draw out of, you need to kind of form them, and you put the gun in, and there's usually a thong over the hammer or something to hold to retain the gun. So it's not really, it's actually in there kind of loose a little bit. Anyway, so I'm switching over to the Pro Dye for this kind of stuff. I've been doing it with the others and I just don't like it. But the Pro Dye doesn't burnish edges real well. At least that's what I'm finding. It was stinking. I was having a heck of a time. And I'd worked on this piece for 20 minutes. And then I grabbed some gum tragacanth and I said, which I usually use for like a chrome tan leather or something like that, that you can't really water burnish. But the gum tragacanth works great for it. It burnished it right up. So there you go. That's what I'm using from now on. But I'm going to get this the tan coat on the insides. That's going to stiffen them up a little bit, not too much. And I think I'm going to use just, I really like the color. I don't want to change the color much. So I think I'm just going to use like a carnauba cream on it. And that should look fantastic, I hope. We'll see. I'm going to do the tan coat, and then I'll do a test piece with the carnauba and see what it looks like. And we'll go from there. So we'll be back probably tomorrow. This is going to sit overnight. Reading glasses because I have contacts in. I've got 2 of my 4 pockets on here. And to lay these out, you got to start down here. And you lay them all on there and stack them, and I clip them in so that I don't lose where they're at. And then when I take them off, I'll move one clip at a time and I'll just clip the pockets together. See, that one clipped real well over here, but usually stays together okay. That way you don't lose track. Sometimes you'll have one pocket that might be just a hair wider, a hair narrower, and it fits better in this spot. And once you get them laid out, you want to keep them that way and not lose track of it. So that's the way I do it. Everybody has their own way. So I've got the first 2 pockets are in. I need to install the third one, and you have to do them in reverse order because they're stitched on the bottom. They're stitched right down here on the bottom of the pocket. So the next one will go in here about like so. And what I want to do is put it in place and make a mark right at the bottom of the pocket. And I want that kind of deep because once you get glue on there, it's a little harder to see. And then I'm going to skive this, the back, just the very bottom here. This part down at the bottom. I'm just going to skive that back, maybe half an inch. And what that does is where the other pocket comes in right here, it'll help keep that laying flatter, and it doesn't feel like you wind up getting everything so stacked up once you get cards in there that it's still comfortable. Excuse me. We need to just rough this up just a little bit. A little piece of sandpaper, scratch all. You just got to rough it up a little. I do go ahead and seal down the sides too. My finish, I decided to use the tan coat, so this one's just about dry. So tan coat dries pretty fast, so it won't take long. But I decided on the tan coat. I thought it looked okay. Always looks better on smaller pieces than bigger. It's really hard to use a Resolene, but you can, if you have a little sprayer, you can spray the Resolene on and it keeps it nice and even. Put our pad down, we're going to stitch the bottom. So I'm going to stitch this up because you've seen me stitch before. Who wants to watch the same thing over and over and over again? And I'll be right back. Alrighty, hey, as I was running my stitch holes up here, on the top here I want to have a binding stitch. I'll actually do a double binding stitch, which is my normal thing to do, where I start in the hole and then I go up and then I come back down the rest of the way. It makes for a lot stronger stitch right up at the very top there, especially when you're going to be putting cards in and out of it. I'm going to do that, but one of the things you need to consider is up towards the top and at the bottom where those stitch line or the stitch holes are on. I want to make sure I leave enough room so that when I come back and glue this piece to the back, that I have enough room to run another stitch line across here and across the bottom without catching one of these threads and cutting it, because that could be a bad thing. I've done that. I'm ready to pop this in my stitching pony, which I finally got reinstalled in here, and I'll get it stitched up. Here, I got the side with my card pockets done, and that'll just attach here. This side is just going to have like a slash pocket in it. That'll attach over here. One thing I don't know if I've ever said a whole lot. Whenever you got to finish this leather, put your final finish on it before you attach the pocket, because otherwise you don't have any finish in here. And I like to have that, just a little extra level of protection. Then I go by, doggone cold, and I'll scuff this up a little bit around the edges, just where the glue is going to be applied and no place else. And that is just to knock that finish down so that the glue can stick. And I'm just doing it with, a little 220 sandpaper. You could, I've done it with just a scratching tool as well. So, and then we just start applying glue. This is just, again, regular contact cement like I always use. And one thing I've noticed is there's not a lot of talk about your glue. And if you use a lot of glue, you see these guys with these big pots. You get these huge pots for their glue. And I understand why they have them. But honestly, I don't glue enough stuff that I need to have a pot of glue that big sitting on my bench all the time. So my glue has a tendency to get thick. And when that happens, it's really, it's very hard to apply. And it just is almost unusable. It still seems to work okay. It's just really hard to put thick glue on. So you can thin it out. They make reducers and stuff that you can get. But But when you read what's in your glue, there's a thinning agent that's already in it, and many times it's acetone. So you can go and buy your reducers from your leather supply store or whatever you want, and that's all fine. But I can go and buy a can of acetone for almost, what, $5-10, something like that? I don't know. It's pretty cheap. And it takes, on a jar like this, like right now, it's starting to get a little thicker than I like it. Put a, half a teaspoon in there and mix it up real good, and you're good to go again. So we're going to let this set up just a little bit. Get my clamps ready. I just like to clamp it together for a little while. Contact cement glues on contact, so you want to make sure you're pretty well lined up. And I'm just using my bench to line up the bottom here. It's normal to have some abnormalities in your cutting, especially after you've done burnishing and stuff like that. So that's holding well enough. I'm not going to use any clamps. I'm going to grab my hammer. This is just a cobbler's hammer. It's nothing special. I don't think I got a date on mine. Drop forged Sears and Roebuck. This hammer's been around for a while because Sears hasn't used the Roebuck name in many decades. So I got this on eBay. I like vintage tools whenever I can find them. Still the original handle on it. I do need to tighten it up a little, but it works. I'm just go along the edge and set everything. And when I got this mallet, it was a little banged up on the end. Somebody had tried to drive nails or something with it. So I did a little work on it. Cleaned it up good. Cleaned up around the edges good. And that's been a good mallet, good hammer. I've probably had it for 10 years now. It's been a good little hammer. There's still some dings and crap in it, but you know what? It all adds to the character of the tool. I will go along one of these days and I'll resurface this edge a little bit. I didn't think I was ever going to use it because that's kind of for cobbling, making shoes and stuff. But I do use it quite a lot. So we'll clean that up one of these days too, and I may make a new handle for it. I may just drive a new wedge in there and see if we can tighten her up a little bit. Anyway, I'm going to leave that set up. I'm going to go through the same process just with some sanding around the edges. On this piece, I'm not using a lining on the inside here. It came out really nice. With the coat of tan coat on there, it's still really pliable because of the oil dye. I think this is going to be a really, really nice checkbook cover / long wallet. And I'll get these glued in. Maybe I'll show some stitching, maybe I won't. I did have a little screw up here in one little spot when I was punching my holes because I wasn't paying enough attention. Should not affect anything with it though. So there is that. So here's my checkbook cover. I just have to run around the edges. I did make sure I dyed them, even though the oil dye doesn't seem to burnish as well. I did dye them, and then I'll run over with a gum tragacanth to make the edges look good. But, so this is what we wind up with. I have all these sample cards. So, let's see how they stack up. Once things get broke in real well, then they will, I don't know, be much better off. And Auto Drivers Club International, I don't know what the hell that is, but that's a card. I've got more of these things. For when I bought my first house, everybody was sending me freaking credit card stuff. It's this one, Orchard Bank. I don't know who the hell is Orchard Bank. But the cards fit in there nice. This will work if you need to stick some cash in there. So one of the things that you usually have to do, it really needs to break in, and it will take a couple of months of having cards in here for this veg tan to break in really, really nice. But go along, this is just a bone folder. Well, if you call it that, it's a burnishing tool. But go along all the parts where there's seams and just make sure that everything is loose because of the glue. And even inside here, no, it doesn't take much. If there's any glue there, it'll usually, when you're putting this kind of pressure onto it, it'll pop pretty quick. So, just in, right to the corner, and up, and across, and up. And there we go. So, aside from the burnishing and a break-in time, I'm getting to like this oil dye. I used the tan coat for a finish on here. And I know my lighting sucks, and I suck with a camera, so keep your comments to yourself. But this is a simple project. It's not real difficult, but it is a little more advanced than like a card wallet.